Furthest go then you and I, where the Shoolini Literature Festival is spreading its wing under the sky. Welcome back to the last session of the day of Shoolini Literature Festival, wherein the focus will be on the teaching through stories. For the discussion, I would like to introduce the moderator of the session, none other than Professor Atul Khosla, presently Vice-Chancellor of Shoolini University. Sir has B.Tech degree from IIT Kanpur and MBA from Jamnalal Bajaj, Mumbai. After excelling in the corporate world and being on the top for many years, Professor Khosla entered the academia and, of course, excelling in that too. Sir, we are honored to have you as the moderator of the session, and hereby I request you to take over the e-platform from here, and over to you, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very, very much, Purnima. And once again, congratulations to all of you. It's so wonderful to be here today because stories are so dear to my heart. Who wants to learn through boring textbooks? None of us. Who wants to listen to stories? Whether they're stories that our grannies told us, or stories that we see on television, or stories that we heard from our teachers. All of us. And that's the power of storytelling. I'll take a second over here, and I do this all the time. Let's think about remembering data. We never remember any data. If I throw a number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8, 4, 3, 2, 1, I will never remember it because the left side of my brain is not very powerful. But now let's think about a music piece, a song. Manju, think about it. Something that you used to hum 20 years back, 30 years back. I can't sing very well, but let me think about a song. Gunkuna rahe hai bhavare khil rahi hai kali kali. Very badly sung, but I remember the tune right up to the nanosecond. And there's the power of the right side of the brain. The right side of the brain can infuse creativity, learning, and change the way we live. And that's going to be the topic for us today. How do we bring storytelling into our classrooms? How do we make our students superbly successful by bringing stories? Stories not just in any form, but it could be for history, that's pretty obvious. But can we bring storytelling into analytical subjects like mathematics? Or even, and I'm going to talk a bit about that later on in the discussion. And who could be better to talk about all these different topics about storytelling than real teachers? And I'm so delighted to have four wonderful, wonderful panelists with me today. And hopefully we'll have a best discussion of the day. Manju, sorry, that's a challenge. You know, hopefully that's going to be the best panel for the day today. And four beautiful ladies that I have. We have Vasudha Neel Mani, Dr. Vasudha. If we can have a spotlight on her, please. Hello, ma'am. Welcome to the panel. And she's the principal of the Rockwoods International School in Udaipur and an illustrious educationist. So excited to have you, and we'd love to hear more about you. You won the Avantika Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam Award for one of the best 50 principals in India. That's so exciting. I mean, I'm so jealous of you. I wish you were my principal. I congratulated my teachers. And you've got a book written called The Gratitude Purpose of Life. So welcome to the panel. We have Amardip Kaur with us today. Amardip, if Purnima, we can have Amardip also spotlighted. Amardip is currently serving at Bal Bharati Public School and is the HOD of the Punjabi department. And apart from teaching, Amardip has a keen interest in writing. She loves to write in haikus, tankas, sandoka, poems. I don't know what that means. So we'll hear more about that as we get into the discussion, ma'am. And she's the author of 4 books. Wow. So again, I'm jealous of you because, and your school, because I wish I had someone like you as my teacher. Of course, I also had some great teachers, but more about storytelling and writing as we go on. Our third panelist is going to be Simi Srivastva. Simi, like all other panelists, is also a storyteller. And Simi discovered storytelling while she was doing a teacher's training in 1998. So you're very experienced as a teacher, ma'am. And you left your corporate career to get into intellectual satisfaction. So somewhere we share genes over here, because I spent 25 years in the corporate sector when I decided not to make rich people richer anymore and decided to get into teaching. That was my passion. I'm sure yours is similar. You're a performing artist, and you've trained in theater, creative music, miming, and puppetry. You set up the Kathashala, a storytelling institute. Wow. So this is so inspiring, honestly, and hopefully, we can bring some of your experiences into Shoolini at some point of time. It's so wonderful to speak to you. And last but not the least, we have Deeptha Vivekanand with us. Deeptha is she includes storytelling in her curriculum across all grades. She's at the Saint Kabir Public School in Chandigarh. And people who are not from Chandigarh, I have to tell you that Saint Kabir is one of the premier schools. It's a top 3 school of Chandigarh. And if Deeptha is using storytelling, I'm sure she must be doing an absolutely fantastic job over there. So Deeptha performs stories for audiences, young and old, at storytelling festivals and workshops and community engagements. Wow. Wow. I feel, how do I put it this way? I feel overwhelmed, I would say, because what an illustrious panel we have. What we're going to do over here is, and I'll request if all the panelists and me can be brought together into a discussion group so that we can get into the discussion. While there were some questions that we shared with each other, we're going to have, I hope you'll give me the liberty to slightly change the agenda as we sort of flow into the discussion. So my first question is going to be with Simi. Simi, you moved from the corporate world, and you moved into being a teacher. You've set up a school just for storytelling, and I can tell you my dream has been that I've always believed that stories can change lives. We are in the business of inspiration. We're not really in the business of learning and teaching. That's what I believe. Tell us a little bit about your story, and how do you get people hooked into a story? I mean, what's the narrative of a story? There are different ways to tell a story, but what's the way you like to tell stories, especially to young children and young students? So what we'll do is we'll keep our answers 2 to 3 minutes so that we can have many more discussions rather than, just one person talking a lot. So I hope 2 to 3 minutes. Simi, I'd love to hear about your answer for my question. But tell us a bit about yourself also. That'll be also lovely. You need to unmute yourself, Simi, ma'am.
Yes. So I am quite an unpredictable person, and I am gracious to have this as my zodiac sign. So I blame it completely to the destiny to make me what I am today. And I love doing all the crazy things that I do. So the newness that you need to bring into your sessions is what makes the session successful. What the audience enjoys is not just the narrative bit of it, but when you make them a part of the story. So what works wonderfully well is, be it any age group, it is when you include the participants into the story and make them do certain signature movements, sing along, a jingle or a song or whatever it is. So when you make them participate in a story is the time when they start to live a story. And the most magical part about the story is that it automatically connects. It bonds you with the audience so well. People you haven't met in your life, people probably you are never going to see in your life again. But story connects you with them in a way that next moment you see them is they are on your Facebook or on your Insta handle. So that is the connect that stories give to you. And I use various techniques to narrate a story. And it all depends upon the age group that I am narrating the story to. But somewhere I feel that even when I have held sessions with the students in the management institutes, if I use the technique, which is like a role play with a 5-year-old, and when I do the same presentation with somebody who is into a management classroom, they all enjoy the story at par. So to say that there is a different way to narrate a story, because somewhere deep down in us, we have a child. And stories help you to bring that child out and make learning so, so very enjoyable.
So wonderful. I think I'm getting goose pimples as I hear you. And before I get to Dr. Mani, and you'll be the next panelist to get on stage, Dr. Mani, I have one more question, Simi. Uh, what about young people like me? Do you tell stories to people like us and get us inspired? People in the 50s?
Yes, not only that, people who are individuals who are not yet born. So I have held stories with mothers who are expecting, and it was so interesting to watch them. Where so the story, the choice of the story was different. There was a bit of music in between. So when that chorus was to be repeated in this story, all the mothers, their hands would go onto their tummy. That's the time when the babies inside would respond, and that was so interesting to watch. So I hope I've answered you,
Absolutely.
Atul.
So, it's like, it reminds me of the Mahabharata. I always joke, I'm like Abhimanyu, because when I start something, I know how to start, but I don't know how to end. So I know what you're referring to. So lovely. Such a beautiful set of answers. So Vasudha, Dr. Mani, so inspiring. Your story is so inspiring. As a teacher, as a principal, you get the time to write books. Tell us more about your book, The Purpose of Life. Would love to hear that. And I mean, are you encouraging your teachers also to bring in stories into teaching? I'd love to hear a bit more about that. But first about your book and about yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Khosla. And great to start with you, Simi, because my teachers have done few courses with Kathashala. So, of course, and talking about me, yes, I have always been a teacher. I think I was a born teacher. So I started my career at a very young age. Maybe I was 18, 19. So that is now 28 years into education, and every day I learn. And the storytelling part was the most interesting part that I used to follow since I was a childhood, when we were together. So that was there, and I actually started my career as a special educator. And I used to when I used to do, like Simi is sharing, that when we did a dance therapy workshop where we imbibed a story with the a gunny bag full of full of stuff, whether it was a cup, whether it was a bell, and we actually had given the characters to our students, and it was a combined group. So it was a very, very beautiful experiences, and that I still carry. First, I will answer your second question, whether I encourage my teachers to do a lot of storytelling. So yes, I do a lot, and I jump into the classrooms to teach at times when so the latest example is that my grade 3 students were not understanding the concept of positive and negative numbers. So I on the spot, I created a story of a rabbit and a carrot and a number line and everything. And so this I did many years ago. And my then student, who's a mother of a kid now, so she was in grade 3 and she still remembers, and she tells her kids teachers that the way my vice principal taught me how to bringing stories into mathematics, and we have still never forgotten. So yes, that's the beauty of storytelling. So yes, we do a lot of storytelling, whether it is sciences, whether it is your history, civics. So it's very, very easy. In history, we do a lot of role plays, and I have a bunch, because their principal is very agile and always jumping with the kids. So I think teachers have to do that. So we have a good set of team, and we do a lot of things. Now, coming back to about my book, Gratitude, the Purpose of Life. So of course, since we are in a storytelling session, so I will narrate a quick anecdote, the story behind my book. So I had started this gratitude curriculum with my children 3 years ago, and it was doing very fine with the children. And during when we had this lockdown, so I used to send a lot of, because parents were complaining, children were complaining, and they were not. They were very nervous, anxious that they were in school. So I used to send daily my recorded voice messages to my children regarding the gratitude. And in one of the panel discussions at that time, there were a lot of panel discussions happening. So I spoke about my gratitude curriculum, and my couple of friends were sitting with me. So they started saying that let's launch this curriculum in a better manner. At that time, it was a rough sketch. So I started writing chapters related to it. And how it began was, I think it began long ago, as we were talking about Abhimanyu. I had a father who was full of positivity and who followed practice of gratitude. So I think I got it from him. And thus, during the pandemic time, so this book came into existence, and the name of the book was given to it by my 12-year-old daughter, and she just said that since you practice gratitude so much, so it should be gratitude the purpose of life. So that's how this book came into existence. And yes, it is a very small, it is a small 21-day exercises that we follow every day. And it not only talks about gratitude, it talks about positivity, it talks about anger management, stress management. So it is everything is in one. So that's what I have tried. And in the end, there are some testimonials with some educationist friends or the people who have practiced my gratitude curriculum from corporate houses also. So yes, so that's about my book.
Exciting, and what a wonderful journey, Vasudha ma'am. So India needs more principals like you, I would say, where we can move students from the remembering side of it to the creating side of it, which is also the Bloom's taxonomy, as all of us
yes.
understand. You spoke about numbers, and you spoke about bringing creativity and storytelling into science. My brother taught this to me, so I'm going to throw a number over here, which I just wrote down randomly, 26356198999395. And if I ask you to remember this, it'll be impossible to remember this. But if you can take a story around it, and let me try to build a story around this, it is so easy to remember, and then we'll practice it. And this is for the audience over here. So I'll put a story around this. I was born on the 26th of March, which is the third month of the year. On the 5th of June, which is 5/6, 1989, my results for IIT came, and that was amongst the most exciting time of my life. After graduating from IIT in 1993, I went and did an MBA and started working in 1995. So I just randomly wrote a number and I built a story around it. And it's so easy to remember because I now remember the story. So the number is 263-56-1989-9395, because that's the story which I told, and that's a great way to remember and learn things. And we've all done that. I just wanted to experiment with, bringing analytics into, or storytelling into analytics. So we all know the power of storytelling, and we'll bring Amardeep, if you're there, into the discussion. So you write Punjabi poems, man, or at least you're the head of the Department of Punjabi. I am assuming that you write Punjabi poems. Tell us about what you write, and would love to hear how you bring more excitement into the classroom using your poems.
गुड इवनिंग सर, गुड इवनिंग एवरीवन। सर मैं हिंदी में बोल लूँ, कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं होगी?
बोलिए मैम, आप पंजाबी में भी बोल सकते हैं।
सर थैंक यू सर। सर एक्चुअली मैं बहुत छोटी थी, फिर मुझे स्टोरी पोएम्स वगैरह लिखने का शौक था। तो जैसे जैसे बड़ी होती गई पता चला कि ऐसे कुछ राइटिंग स्किल्स में जिसमें बुक्स भी होती है। पहले तो ऐसा माहौल नहीं था घर में कि कोई लिखना पसंद करता हो, लेकिन फिर धीरे धीरे जैसे पता चला, फिर लोकल मैगजीन्स में, फिर न्यूज़पेपर में, ऐसे धीरे धीरे बढ़ता गया। तो फिर बुक्स भी लिखनी शुरू की। और क्लास में सर मैं कॉम्पिटिशन्स वगैरह भी स्कूल में करवाती हूँ, जैसे पोएम रेसिटेशन के हो जाते हैं, स्टोरी राइटिंग के होते हैं। और हमारी लिटरेचर तो आपको बताइए कि लिटरेचर जब पढ़ाई जाती है तो वैसे ही स्टोरी मेथड में पढ़ाई जाती है। कोई कहानी पढ़ाते हैं, पोएम पढ़ाते हैं, आर्टिकल पढ़ाते हैं, तो वो स्टोरी मेथड में ही पढ़ाते हैं। इवन अगर हमें कभी एडजस्टमेंट्स मिलती है हिस्ट्री वगैरह की, तो हम वो भी ट्राई करते हैं कि स्टोरी मेथड में उनको पढ़ाया जाए, ताकि उनका इंटरेस्ट ज़्यादा बनता है। जो हमने जज भी किया है कि वो हिस्ट्री स्टोरी मेथड में पढ़ते हैं, तो वो ज़्यादा अच्छे से उस चीज़ को समझते हैं। और हम कंपटीशन करवाते हैं सर, 6 से शुरू होता है, जैसे 6 to 8 का अलग होता है और 9th ऑनवर्ड्स अलग होता है। उनके पोएम रेसिटेशन भी होती है, पोएम राइटिंग कॉम्पिटिशन्स भी करवाए जाते हैं और स्टोरी राइटिंग भी होती है। उसमें हमारे पास बहुत अच्छे-अच्छे बच्चे आते भी हैं सर, और उससे आगे फिर उनको ट्रेनिंग देने के लिए जैसे एक पोएम लिखी जाती है, जो शुरू-शुरू में जो लिखते हैं, वो तो बड़ी सिंपल सी एक तुकांत करके उसका जो राइमिंग बनती है ऐसे लिखते हैं। फिर धीरे-धीरे हम उनको कविता जो होती है वो छंद पे लिखी जाती है सर। तो वो छंद वगैरह सारा प्रॉपर्ली उनको मेथड करके वो अलग-अलग सारे मेथड समझा के, जो बच्चे ज़्यादा इंटरेस्टेड होते हैं, उन्हें आगे फिर हम लेके जाते हैं। उसके अलावा सर मैं हाइकू से दोका और तांका वगैरह भी लिखती हूँ, तो उसके रिगार्डिंग भी बच्चों को थोड़ा समझाते हैं, साथ-साथ जोड़ते रहते हैं। तो इससे हमारा एक काफ़ी अच्छा इन्वॉल्व हो चुके हैं। जैसे
I think we're losing. Am I audible or we lost Amardeep?
We lost Amardip.
We lost Amardeep. Okay, we'll come back to Amardeep ji. I think let's go to Deeptha. She's been waiting so patiently over here. You know, it's so inspiring to meet you, Deeptha. I mean, what a story. First of all, you're bringing storytelling. You've got some online. Okay, ma'am, we lost you. Sorry, Deeptha. Amardeep ji, can you hear us? हम थोड़ी देर के लिए आपको lose कर गए थे.
ओके सर। सर मैं बता रही थी कि जैसे हम पोएम्स वगैरह शुरू करते हैं, मैंने पता नहीं अब कहाँ तक मेरी आवाज आपको आई है, तो मैं एक बार शुरू से शुरू करती हूँ। मैं बता रही थी
अब वो हमने आपका सब सुन लिया था। मेरे को तो बड़ा ईगरनेस है कि आपकी एक पोएम सुने आपसे। If you can recite
हाँ,
a poem.
श्योर सर, मैं आपको अपनी एक लेटेस्ट पोएम सुनाती हूँ, जो अभी मैंने किसानों पे लिखी है। अगर किसी को कोई ऑब्जेक्शन ना हो तो मैं क्या किसानों पे कुछ बोल सकती हूँ?
बिल्कुल, आई एम श्योर इट विल बी
सर, ये पंजाबी में है। ना गंडा से ना तलवारा ना कोई हथियार। एम आई ऑडिबल सर?
यस मैम।
ना गंडा से ना तलवारा ना कोई हथियार, हक लैण लई आए हां तेथों सुन लैनी सरकार। किते तेरियां हंझू कैसा किते पानी दी बौछार, रोक नहीं सकदी राह साडा ना सानू वंगार। भोले भाले किसान हां पर समझी ना कमजोर, हथी किरत करदे हां पूरा हड्डां विच है जोर। वखरी जग ते शान असाडी वखरी जग ते तोर, अन्नदाते हां सारे जग दे कर इधर भी गौर। पूंजीपतियां दी करे गुलामी साडे हक लैंदा है खो, जिन्हां सदका रोटी है खावदा उन्हां नाल ही करे तड़ो। असी मिट्टी नाल मिट्टी होवदे चाहे जेठ होवे जा पो, धरती च सोना उगावदी साडे कीर्ति हत्थां दी छो। कफन बन के तुरे हां गल होवेगी आर जा पार, जा शहीद हो जावांगे जा जुल्म दा हो संहार। इतिहास गवाह है जद भी होया है अत्याचार, शहादता देन लई हमेशा अगे आई है दस्तार। सुनो देशवासियों, लड़ाई इकल्ली नहीं किसान दी, लड़ाई है एक धरती ते वसदे हर उस इंसान दी, जो खांदा है अनाज की गरीब ते की तरवान दी, जो करदे ने इज्जत इस धरती दे भगवान दी। आओ सारे रल के अमर आवाज अपनी उठाइए, किसानां दे संघर्ष विच आपां भी योगदान पाइए। करिए दुआवां हथ जोड़ खैर उन्हां दी मनाइए, जित के होवे घरी वापसी ता खुशियां दे दीवे जलाइए। जित के होवे घरी वापसी ता खुशियां दे दीवे जलाइए। थैंक्स।
वंडरफुल, सो ब्यूटीफुल। और अमरदीप जी, आपने और बाकी ऑडियंस ने भी देखा होगा कि जैसे अमरदीप जी पोएट्री में आई, बॉडी लैंग्वेज ही चेंज हो गया। And that's the power of creativity, and that's the power of storytelling, that we get into a zone. It's called the zone of creativity. So congratulations, what a beautiful, beautiful poem. And I'll come back to you, in a while. We'll now move over to Deeptha. So Deeptha, what an illustrious CV you have. You've been authoring programs and online courses on storytelling as a pedagogy. So I'd love to know more about that. And of course, it's about understanding what you're doing, but I'd also like to answer, or you to answer a question that can we bring storytelling into university education, not just school education? And the second thing which I would love to hear would be about your venture, Ever After Learning. So it looks like, you know, it's not-for-profit or for-profit venture. Tell us a little more about that. But the question which also I'd like to get into a discussion with you is, how do you get the head and the heart together in storytelling? Of course, you know, sometimes the story hits the head, sometimes it hits the heart. And do you believe both of them can come together and make our students more EQ or emotionally positive? That's something which we'd love to hear from you. Over to you, Deeptha.
Thank you, Atul. And it's so lovely to be with all the other co-panelists here, and indeed a great privilege, I'd say. So first things first, I mean, I also came into storytelling after a career in the corporate. So,
oh, lovely. So welcome to the club.
Yes. So, so, you know, the reason I came into storytelling was because while I was in corporate, I was in learning and development. And a lot of the times I was talking to people about, you know, communication and behavioral skills and so on and so forth. And it was at that point that it struck me that, you know, we're talking to adults whose thought processes have been so crystallized and, you know, so well formed, and I mean, that's not necessarily in a good way all the time, that it becomes very difficult to break mindsets when, you know, after a certain you've reached a certain stage. And I've also realized that if you need to start influencing people, you have to start young. So that's why I moved consciously from corporate to getting into the education space, and storytelling became this beautiful vehicle for me to do that through. Having said that, I've also been in touch with corporate training, but using storytelling as the again as the medium. So my venture, Ever After Learning, is something that works in all of these spaces. I work in school education. I work in corporate learning and development through storytelling. I engage with community initiatives as well. So to answer your question about does it engage the heart and the mind? Yes, certainly it does, because like you mentioned in your opening comments about the right brain and the left brain, storytelling has these inbuilt, you know, mechanisms where there is this beautiful interplay of emotion and logic. While you are so invested in a story, you don't want the protagonist of the story to, you know, fall down that ditch, or you want that person to get the love of his or her life. You also know that the person has to take some logical steps to avert danger or to get that desired goal. So stories keep you hooked as to what is coming next, while keeping you emotionally invested in what's going on. And we have enough research in neuroscience to tell us how stories engage all aspects of the brain. So your decision making becomes a lot more powerful when you approach a problem in the form of a narrative, because the human brain is wired to process information in the form of story. So can it be used in university education? Of course, the answer is a resounding yes, because it can be used anywhere where people need to engage with something and make sense of it. So storytelling and sense making as a tool, they go together. So so that's really what you know, I like to focus on, whether it's working with children or whether it's working with adults. To me, at the core of every experience, if there is a narrative, then the learning that comes out of that is a lot deeper. And this is one of the things that I try to do in my work with Saint Kabir as well. So not just as a medium to entertain, but also to truly engage children and engage teachers mostly in leveraging this power that stories have. So the module that I've built for the CBSE is also on these lines. It's called Storytelling as Pedagogy. So how do you use stories in the classroom across grades and across subjects is what the module is all about. So it's an online training module that's soon to be launched. So I can't give away too much at this point. So yeah, so that's really what I do in a nutshell.
Fantastic. I think once it's launched, please do send the link to us. I think all of us would love to know more about it. And at some point of time, we'd love to engage with you at Shoolini, and hopefully we can have our teachers become better teachers by bringing storytelling through your consulting. Simi, you also do theater. So one of the things which I'm experimenting with at Shoolini is to teach voice modulation and teaching, leveraging theater to our teachers. I remember a very senior teacher of mine, a guru of mine from IIT Kanpur, once told me, he said, Atul, the stage, when I go on the stage for teaching, it's like theater for me. And IIT used to have very large lectures with 400, 500 students, 3 hours each. So he said, I would prepare three days for that one lecture. And I would see it as a stage, I would see it as theater. So do you think we can make teachers better teachers by leveraging theater, taking them through the exciting world of theater or other creative forms and make them better teachers?
Yes, sure enough. And, a simple thing. Hey. 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 So the word hey, if said in different forms, would completely change the meaning of the word hey. So that's storytelling and theater are two inseparable things. I think when I go to perform a story, I just think that I am a big Nautanki Baj, and I am just doing a story and I'm just enacting whatever I have to without any inhibitions. I just go on stage and perform, and that is what connects. And let me just share this one little story with you. How I got into, I hope you would all be interested to listen to this.
Yes.
Sure.
So how I got into designing or thinking about teaching through stories or using stories as a pedagogy is that in the year 2000, I was traveling to Jalandhar to do a workshop with a set of teachers in one of the renowned schools over there. So after 4 days of training, on the 5th day, I was to do a live demo session with the students and the teachers. And when I started to tell the story was of the 3 little pigs. And there was this little boy. He would not allow me to move ahead. The moment I would, try to move ahead with the story, he would throw a question at me. And I would try to pacify him in some ways. And I would then try with great effort, try to move on to my story ahead. And again, he would throw a question at me. And it was getting a little difficult, but I didn't stop him from asking me questions. Because the moment you start asking questions, it's the time for you to realize that your audience is into the story. That is where they are trying to reason out things, and so they speak. So it was very difficult for me to narrate a 15-minute story, but somehow, thankfully, it ended. And after that, I asked them to do an activity, and the activity was that they had to get a tub. I asked them to give me a tub, an empty tub, and I placed a bucket in the tub and filled it to brim with water. And to each student, I had given either a hay flake or a piece of wood or a pebble or a stone. So each one was carrying one of these. And I said, when I say go, you have to throw it into the water. And I was like, go. And they're all standing there. holding those in their hands. And I said, why aren't you throwing it? No, it'll make the class dirty. And we talk about experiential learning. So I said, no, nothing will happen. I requested the teachers to allow the students, and they said, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do. And there was so much of a commotion. I mean, I was enjoying the shrieks and the yells in the classroom. And then out of all that, those loud noises came a question. Why is this not going down? He was pointing to the hay flakes which were floating. I said, yeah, it's not going down. Let us apply. And this is with 5-year-olds. So I told him, let's apply pressure. Release. And it sprung up again. So he said, ye besharam hai. Ye pani mein nahi ja raha. So I was like, ye besharam nahi hai, ye light hai. So he looks at me with those questioning eyes. What is he trying to tell me? So I said, okay, give me both your palms. And he gave me both his palms. And on one palm, I put the hay flake. And on the other, I placed a small piece of wooden log. And I said, now, which is lighter? He said, both. I was disappointed because my adult mind told me that he is going to point at the flake. And he's right. So then I removed the hay flake and I placed a stone, which is a little heavy, and I put my hand underneath his hand. And I said, now tell me which is lighter. He pointed to the wooden piece. And then I replaced the stone with the flake. And I said, now out of these two, which is lighter? And he pointed to the hay flake. So it not only gave me an opportunity to understand that whenever I am asking a question, I have to leave my adult mind behind because I'm talking to somebody who is going to see things at his age. So when we talk about coming down to the age group of a child, yeah. And then this boy, when I finished the session and I walked out of the classroom, the coordinator came to me and she says, congratulations. I said, why? She says, you know that boy who was asking you questions? I said, yeah, he dropped me dead. She says, he was the boy who used to sleep in the class. And we had to shake him and wake him up. And today he was all awake. He was listening. He was reasoning and he was asking you questions. I said, don't tell me. She says, yeah. That is when I went back to the hotel room, that was the day when I realized the power of stories. And I said, why don't we sit down to design our lesson plans in the story form? Why don't we just sit down to design the entire curriculum based on stories? And since then, I've been doing it, and we've been doing it with schools across. And grade 1 to 5 has also started using stories as a pedagogy. And the results are amazing because it's proven that if you teach through stories, the chances of you remembering it is 22 times more than while we normally, speak a statement. So I think that is the power of stories. And when a teacher begins to tell a story, the nautanki bit comes. Hey? Hello? Now that connects you to your audience. We talk about communication skills. I think that's the best way to learn. Because when a teacher is narrating, or even when she's reading a text, so we have this program for teachers where we train them in the art of reading. Just by reading a text, you can actually engage a student into a topic, even if it is dull. Forget about telling a story. So that is the power of your voice. You are a magician. If you're a storyteller, you are a magician. You're a bagpiper, and you can take the audience to wherever you want them to be.
Lovely. Thank you, Simi. What a beautiful answer. And it made me think, and that's a question for Vasudha over here. So when I started teaching, I conceptualized a program called Sprint. Sprint was nothing but getting the students out into a 1-week professional program, corporate training type program. And we did a lot of games, a lot of dancing, a lot of fun activities, as I would say. And at the end, this was MBA students, by the way. And at the end of that, I got a lot of phone calls from parents. They were saying, "Aapke university mein padhai likhai hoti hai ki gana dance hi karte rehte hain?" And that's my question for you, Vasudha, that you're bringing a lot of storytelling into your school. Do you face such questions from parents? Because society typically expects learning as roting and spending time on the textbook. And if you have faced such questions from parents, how do you solve these questions? I mean, how do we make this a societal wave, not just a wave done in a few schools?
So we have a beautiful program that we call it as a bridge course. And that bridge course is because I run a Cambridge affiliated school. So what happens is that when we are doing this bridge course, so that is for the students to have a sneak peek into how they will be learning. And there is an orientation program for the parents where I ensure that if my children, whatever my children are doing, whether they are, finding the area of a rectangle on a field, or they are doing treasure hunt for solving mathematical problems, or they are knitting a story, like I would just give them a sentence and the students have to, all the parents class wise goes through that experience. They have to do it. They have to come and attend that orientation program. And in the end, their stories, their poems, whatever they have written, whatever, like Simi said, whatever drama and nautanki we create with them, we make the parents go through it also. And at the end of the day, we sit down and discuss that, what were the learning outcomes for that. So what we noticed, you're talking about your MBA students, and I am here talking about a lot of professionals, whether they were CA, doctors, engineers, IM professors. So they told us that, we could relate to what you were doing. And it was very, very interesting part that through this experiential learning, or the storytelling, what they were making, or we used to collect them in the groups and we used to tell them, okay, whatever you want to do, you do it in your own way. So it was different groups, a simple concept like life cycle of a butterfly, or life cycle of a anything, or germination of a seed, life cycle of a seed also. So it was very heartening to see that parents who had a little musical orientation, they prepared songs, somebody enacted, some created art and design pieces, some did different activities, and then we told them that we do exactly the same thing in the classrooms. So I strongly believe in, and like I was listening to Simi very, very carefully, that how when we are doing these things with our children in the classroom, we actually are catering to all kind of learners in a classroom. At the end of the day, fortunately, unfortunately, they have to pen it down. Whatever they are learning, they have to pen it down in their journals. So yes, that is there. We have to deal with that. And a few parents, of course, they have the concerns, but yes, since we take them into the confidence when they are coming for the admission, and we tell them that, this is our pedagogical way of doing things, that is how we are doing things. This is something, we have a cross curricular linkages concept, we link everything together. So they understand, they really understand. Yes.
Fantastic. I think we need to start doing that a lot, but again, being in a smaller town, there are disadvantages of that. But yeah, you're right. I think that was day one 8 years ago. Today we are known for sprint. I think students join us for the program, so you're absolutely right over there, Vasudha. I'm going to come to Amardip ji. Amardip ji, आपकी पोएट्री तो बहुत जबरदस्त थी, बहुत मजा आया. और मेरा क्वेश्चन आपके लिए ये है कि आप बच्चों को पोएम रिसाइट करना तो सिखाते हैं, पर क्या कभी किसी साइंस के टीचर ने या साइंस की क्लास में आपको बुलाया गया है कि आप अपनी आर्टिस्टिक या पोएट्री या स्टोरी टेलिंग वहां पे लाएं, क्लासरूम में लाएं और बच्चों को साइंस उसके थ्रू सिखाएं? क्या उसका एक्सपीरियंस आपको कभी हुआ है? मेरा कहने का मतलब यह है कि क्या साइंस का टीचर पोएट्री और पंजाबी के टीचर को बुला रहा है और आपस में कोलैबोरेट क्या आप कर रहे हैं अपने स्कूल में?
नहीं सर, ऐसा तो नहीं हुआ है कि साइंस के साथ ऐसी कुछ कोलैबोरेशन हुई हो, लेकिन ऐसे है कि हमारे साइंस टीचर खुद लिखने की कोशिश जरूर कर रहे हैं. जैसे हमारी रिसेंटली एक बायो टीचर है, तो उन्होंने हिंदी में पोएम लिखी थी, तो वो हम साइंस डिपार्टमेंट में बैठ के ऐसे डिस्कशन कर रहे थे, लेकिन अभी कोलैबोरेशन का कुछ अभी नहीं शुरू किया है, लेकिन आपके जो अच्छा आइडिया मिला है, ये आगे हम फ्यूचर में जरूर ऐसा कुछ सोच सकते हैं सर।
Absolutely, I think I was just thinking about it कि ऐसा करने से अगर हम collaboration करें, क्योंकि learning is now becoming transdisciplinary, new education policy भी इसके बारे में बहुत कर रहा है, so learning by doing और अलग-अलग तरीके के अगर हम चीजें लोगों को सिखाएं, so it could be very very positive. That's just my belief.
एग्जैक्टली सर, एग्जैक्टली जरूर करेंगे सर, आगे कुछ कोशिश करेंगे।
Just a thought, I'm not sure, but I think it could be a thought. So Deeptha, for you, and I'm going to take you back to your corporate world. You came from the boring world of corporates, where we used to wear ties and suits and were very stiff. So I'll give you one small example, and that is my example. I used to be in consulting. I used to be with a firm called McKinsey. And I think I was a boring presenter till I became a teacher, and I started teaching, and suddenly my clients started loving me. They started loving me because I would present very, very differently. I would experiment in front of the class, and my consulting ability went up manyfold. Is that just with me, or you think through storytelling, through teaching, we can actually make better human beings? So the point I'm driving is, can we get corporate leaders or corporate managers into the classroom, make them teach, make them do storytelling theater, and make them better human beings, but also make them enjoy the job more? Do you think that's a stupid idea, or that can be done?
No, I think that's a fantastic idea, and I think a lot of it is already happening in the corporate space, from what I can see, because corporate storytelling is a field of specialization in itself, and increasingly business leaders and managers are understanding the importance of having storytelling as part of their communication repertoire, because what storytelling does is not only does it go to the head, it goes to the heart, and most decision making at the end of the day is emotional. Even if the data says otherwise, if you have a gut feeling about something, if your instincts tell you something, then you, as a CEO of a company, you're probably going to go with that, right? And we also know how Jeff Bezos runs his presentations, his meetings at Amazon based on the narrative structure. So he's completely done away with all PowerPoint presentations, and he encourages his managers to actually write stories about what happened. And they come into the boardroom, they read out those stories, and then they sit down and analyze what exactly happened and how then they go about solving problems. So that's just one example, of course. So like this, we know for a fact that corporate leaders are embracing storytelling more seriously. And I think it's because, what does a story do to you? Long after the story has been told, it's still playing in your mind, right? And then you sort of, with your experiences of the world, you start connecting the dots very differently, and each person therefore does that at their level. So each one is interacting with that story at many levels over time, and so the story begins to form differently in different people's minds, right? And as a result of that, you become more empathetic. You begin to understand what's really going on with the person in the story. You can actually put yourself in that person's situation and view it from a different vantage point. You become more analytical. You become more of a critical thinker. You begin to see all the possibilities that open up, and not just one possible solution to a problem. And in a sense, these are the 21st century skills that we talk about today, that we want to equip in our students in school and college and university. So if we were to, I think, consciously put stories and storytelling at the center of the learning experience as much as possible, wherever possible, we certainly have a higher chance at creating individuals who are more wholesome personalities.
Fantastic. 10 minutes left. Exciting discussion. I don't even know how 50 minutes passed, so we got 10 minutes left. A bunch of questions over here. If you allow me, we'll go to comments and questions from the audience. Manju is asking a question, and I'll leave it to any one of you to answer these questions. You can just pull up your hand and say, okay, you'll answer that. This art of storytelling through the teaching through storytelling goes back to the Panchatantra. Do you use Panchatantra in any of your classes? That's a question. Any one of you can answer who would like to do that. I'll leave it to you.
So I'll take that. So the Panchatantra, of course, I know is a great body of work, but that's not the only form of stories that that we use. But to give a specific example of Panchatantra, right now we are in the process of trialing a video series where we are trying to teach the tenses in the English language through the Panchatantra stories. So we're in the process of scripting the stories in all of the different tenses and the different tense forms in English. So it's the past tense, the present tense, the continuous tense, and the perfect tense, and so on and so forth. So at the center of every video is a Panchatantra story that is being used to then teach the concept out of that. So that's just one way in which you can use the Panchatantra. But at the end of the day, Panchatantra, what is the Panchatantra? They're fables, right? And they're animal stories. So you can fit those stories in wherever you want. There's really no end to that. So yes, the answer to that question is we do use Panchatantra a lot, along with, of course, the Aesop's fables and all the other folk tales from around the world.
Absolutely. I mean, hopefully Arabian Nights too. Poonamnanda, who's with Shoolini, is saying that this year we involved not just parents, but also grandparents in our online events. Wow, Poonam, that sounds very exciting. I somewhere missed that. So that's a great initiative. Ashu is asking a question, and I think that's a very interesting question. Probably Vasudha or Simi could pick it up. How about storytelling for students who learn differently? Kids who find difficulty in learning. Are you using stories for that? I'm sure you do. And how do you go about especially teaching concepts like maths to them?
You want me to answer, Simi, or you want to?
We'll have Simi come to the same question again. Why don't you start? We'll then pass it over to Simi.
Sure. So, of course, we do a lot of activities when it comes to using storytelling for differently abled students also, because whatever said and done, they relate to the things. So as I gave you the example, very, very small example, when we are teaching them about concepts of countings or count and write. So we start with the very simple concepts that they relate to in the classrooms. So maybe story of one bird, then two birds, then three birds, going on like that. And of course, using a lot of this I did many years ago when I was a special educator myself. But yes, it continues still also. So it used to work wonders. And when we wanted to create the concept of any concept, like I spoke about the dance therapy we used to use with the children. So we use those dance therapy for not only for mathematics, we use dance therapy for sciences, giving them at the story form, making them, saying dance, jump. So yes, we used to do a lot of techniques when it came to cater to students with special needs. So whether they were Asperger's, whether they had communication disorders, whether they were slow learners or Down syndrome, everybody, we used to cater to them in a very different manner.
Any thoughts on this, Simi?
Yeah, in fact, at the age of say 46, I learned factors.
Wow.
And that was while I was sitting and doing a class evaluation with one of the schools in Jammu, where they had taken up Karachala's methodology of teaching and learning. So I was sitting in a class evaluation for grade 5 maths class, and I was wondering, what am I doing over here? My maths is 0 as it is. So, so I said, nevertheless, now that I'm here, let me just see whether they're following the pattern that we have asked them to follow. And this teacher had beautifully conducted the class, the lesson plan, wherein she had divided the class into various interests of the students. So the ones who were interested to write were taken into the scripting, committee. The ones who were ready to perform, they were performing. The ones who were wanting to designing the set, they designed the set. So it was basically a contribution of all the students in the class, along with the teacher, who was a passive, who played a passive role and was not very actively. He was just sitting and watching how things were being done. So how they taught was that there was a skit which was enacted. It was barely a 6-minute skit where they showed that there are two daughters who enter a room and the mother is sitting and she's stitching clothes. So one of the daughters, she asks the mother a question. How come you are sitting on the sewing machine so early? It's just 11 o'clock. So she says, yeah, I have certain orders that I have to deliver by this evening. So everything in the kitchen is done, except for those 12 glasses that are washed and they need to be put up on the shelf. So can you please go ahead and do it? And scene 2 sees these two sisters entering the kitchen. And there's a shelf over there, and they have to place these 12 glasses on a shelf. So both of the sisters, they put 12 glasses in one row. And there was this girl who was standing on the blackboard with the chalk. So she writes 12 into 1 is equal to 12. Then the younger sister says, let's play a game and see how many equal glasses can we put in 2 rows. So they put 6 glasses into 2 rows. So on the board, it goes 6 into 2. Then how many, okay, this is fun. Let's see how many equal rows can accommodate 4 glasses. So it's like 4 into 3, and then 3 into 4, and then 2 into 6, and 1. So the factors of number 12 are 12, 6, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I said, wow, I'm learning it now. And whenever I had my maths exam, I was completely dependent on my pair group, which was sitting in front of me, left, right, and center, to help me out. I said, if somebody would have taught me maths like this, probably they were the ones who would have looked up to me. And I still wouldn't have the doubt whether I answered my questions correctly. And sitting over there, Atul, I immediately thought of my car registration number, and I totaled it up, and I started to find out the factors for the car registration number. My house number, I was looking for the factors of that. I didn't need a book.
Simi,
I
this is
had
so
all the
exciting, but
numbers
I
around
will
me.
be interrupting you here because we have a whip master, Manju, who's telling me we've got 3 minutes to go. I would have loved to pick up everyone's questions and everyone's comments, but I just like to mention Viksha, who's got a few questions over here. Ashu's made a couple of comments. The Rannum, who's asking, do puppets add colors to storytelling? Shalini has got a question. So sorry we couldn't pick up all your questions. But before we leave, I'm going to take a minute extra, Manju, so don't look at me like that. I would like every panelist to close the discussion with 30 seconds. You could tell a 30-second story or any last thoughts or a poem, but let's go around the table with 30 seconds of last thoughts through whichever you want to end the discussion. So I'll have Deeptha to start with.
Well, okay. 30 seconds is too short for a story unless it's Ernest Hemingway's shortest story of 6 words, which is baby shoes never worn for sale. That's the shortest story ever. But I'd just like to say that, let's embrace storytelling wherever possible, and let's make a more conscious effort to bring it into our learning systems, starting from school all the way to university and at the workplace too. So we need more stories to drive the world forward.
Vasudha.
Yes, I was very much happy to learn that you did something with the grandparents. So yes, we also do the same. So my 30 seconds is let's take this storytelling forward and imbibe it into our day-to-day classroom teaching. Thank you.
So we can get the Nana Nani stories into the classroom.
Yes, we got that. We got that done. Nana Nani and Baba Dadi story in the classroom. So and it was very, very interesting. So they came in the group and they narrated their own life stories or some other stories, and a few got emotional also. So yes, it was very heartening to see.
Fantastic. Thank you. Amardeep, आपके anything आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे? आप म्यूटेड हैं अमरदीप।
हाँ सर, मैंने तो आज खुद बहुत कुछ सीखा है आप लोगों से, और बहुत अच्छा इसलिए मैं मंजूरन से बहुत कुछ सीखा है आपसे। जो आपने साइंस वाला कॉन्सेप्ट दिया वो मुझे बड़ा अच्छा लगा है, तो मुझे आज सही में ये ज्वाइन करके बहुत कुछ सीखने को मिला, और आगे मैं फर्दर भी इसको जरूर और सीखूंगी, कंटिन्यू करेंगे। आपके जो आइडियाज थॉट्स हमें मिले हैं तो उसे हम आगे जरूर लेके जाएंगे। थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू अमरदीप जी। सिमी, वी लव्ड योर हैंड। Be creating something similar in 30 seconds before you leave.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Don't end with that. Don't end with that.
No, I would just like to say, Atul, कुछ तो है कहानियों में कि आपने हमें आज यहाँ पे बुलाया है।
बिल्कुल है, और हमारे दिलों में भी है सिमी। तो मैं ऑर्गेनाइजर्स को बोलूंगा कि प्लीज can you send our telephone numbers to each one of us, if that's okay with all the 5 of you?
Yes,
I'd love
yes,
to
sure.
engage, would love to chat, would love to talk. This was such a fascinating discussion. You know, I do lots and lots of webinars, Simi, Vasudha, Deeptha, Amardeep. मैंने कुछ 600-700 webinars किए हैं. This would be my number 1. Okay, I just loved it so thoroughly.
Thank
So
you.
beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it was great interacting with all the eminent speakers over here. And I really feel privileged to be a part of this discussion. Thank you so much, Atul.
Same here. Thank you so much, Atul. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
once
you, sir.
again, hopefully we can do the next discussion at Shoolini and get you all of you here. It's so inspiring here. The flowers are blooming and the bees are buzzing and the birds are chirping. But I think that's probably for next year.
That's a lucrative story, huh?
It is. Okay, thank you. And Manju, over to you.